Speropictures podcast, where we focus on the stories and not the headlines.
Because we believe that stories can change the world.
Get ready because the show starts now. Hey there, Speropictures crew. Welcome back to Coming Attractions. I'm your host, Joy Thayer.
And I am Mr. Joy. And is it proper to call this Coming Attractions? Because I actually, we're looking back on
This is true.
the year.
This is previous attractions.
This is previous attractions. Welcome to Previous Attractions. I am your host, Mr. Joy.
I'm your co-host, Joy.
Yeah, see, it doesn't work quite as well
No.
the other way direction.
No.
Yeah, see, it's that, and that's why it's you know, I mean, we're looking back, we're doing everything wrong right now. But it's okay. It's okay. So
Thanks for hanging out with us. We have a show about other shows we've done.
it was an interesting year.
It was a really interesting year.
To say the least, in a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with all of the news stuff and the elections and Bidenomics and Ukraine and Israel and I mean, you just think back on everything that's happened.
Right. So
Nuts.
most people go to the movies so that they can kind of escape from reality.
Right. And so what we're talking about is, you know, it's a lot what we talk about because we make movies. So we actually decided, well, instead of focusing on all of the news that's been going on, we're going to look back on the year of movies. And specifically, we've actually had some interviews, some really great interviews. With some of our friends that actually make movies.
So we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite interviews that we've had this year in Coming Attractions.
Yep.
And so we're going to do them in order of when the movie was released.
Yes.
And so one movie that was released on my birthday.
Your birthday last year.
Thank you so much over there at Kingdom Story.
And Lionsgate.
We appreciate you, Lionsgate. Jesus Revolution was released on February 24th. For those of you who want to send me a gift, February 24th is coming up.
And Jesus Revolution is interesting because we actually knew about this movie years ago because we're friends with Daryl, who's one of the producers. And they actually started filming this prior to COVID. And some of the cast was completely different.
Yep.
As far as we understand, Jim Gaffigan was actually looked at as playing Chuck Smith. I think there was some other interesting cast choices.
I'm glad you didn't say he was going to play Jesus. I was like, whoa, that's really bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. He was a very white Jesus, a very pale Jesus.
Pale. Beyond the pale.
Beyond the pale. Anyway, so, but they ultimately ended up having to stop in the middle of COVID, and then pick it back up again. But in the process of that, they did some rewrites. Of course, there's always casting changes and crew changes and things like that happen when something stops and starts again. And so and then they ended up with Kelsey Grammer.
They did,
which was amazing.
Yeah, which is one of our friends' friend. So we're good friends with Diane Venora. She and Kelsey Grammer went to school together at Juilliard.
Yep.
And so he's an amazing human. But one of the things that didn't change on Jesus Revolution was one of the directors that we got to interview.
When I knew I got Allie for Jeanette, who plays the pastor's kid, I'm a pastor's kid, so I really identified with her. So they let me do a lot of rewriting with her and write some extra stuff in for her, which is really fun to do. But I had this crazy idea to have her sing War in the car before she picked up Lonnie. And that's a very expensive song. So obviously we shot it just with her not singing any lyrics. We just shot her rolling in the car like something was on the radio. But man, we fought so hard to get in there, and that was definitely an extra expense. But just those moments to fight for in a film that are centered around music and that feel really good. So that was conceived for the movie with that song in mind. And I was just so glad that Lionsgate and the producers let it live, you know, because there was another version of the movie where it would just been her driving, just picking him up, and we don't have that cool little instrumental break.
Brent's cool. I actually got to hang out with him a couple of months ago. I was in Tennessee and we had coffee, and he's just a really cool, down to earth guy.
I really enjoyed working with him on I Can Only Imagine, and we had such a great time on set. And he brings so much to the films because he also has a musical background. Yeah. And so you get that with I Can Only Imagine, with Jesus Revolution, bringing in the songs and the music and everything and his inspiration. But Jesus Revolution did really well in the box office.
Actually did really well. And that's one of the things that's been really kind of odd about movies the last couple of years. It's been a very strange, because you have the COVID lockdowns and then, nobody was going to see movies. And then, what is it that people want?
Right.
What do audiences want? A lot of movies that are popular right now are based on, how did this particular product come about? Like, you have Air, Tetris, BlackBerry. Like, there were these types of movies that were just streaming, but very popular. And I think it's because people are kind of curious as to, what's the origin story? What's the history behind, some of these things that are very commonplace in our lives? And so when you'd have a movie like Jesus Revolution that, a lot of baby boomers, heard about, a lot of Gen Xers have heard about. Right. It's like, this is a very significant point in history. Yeah. What was it around that time? What was going on? And I think what's interesting is that, I was watching that movie and it reminded me of the movie Miracle.
I'm trying to read your mind.
Sorry, 1980 Olympic team. Beating out the USSR. Uh-huh. And when I watched that movie with Kurt Russell, great movie.
When did you meet Kurt Russell?
Yeah, I didn't meet Kurt Russell, but haven't met Kurt Russell yet. No. But what was interesting about it was how they were talking about how tumultuous the 70s were, and all of the economic breakdowns and the gas shortages and gas lines, atomic war, Russia, all of this stuff. And it's really interesting because it's like, I'm watching this and I'm going like, I feel like you change a little bit of the dialogue and we're watching the news today.
Right.
Same thing with kind of Jesus Revolution, very tumultuous time at the end of the 60s and early 70s. And so what I really like about watching those movies is that when you watch those movies, and you think about what's going on right now, you kind of go, oh, you know what? I think we're going to get through this. Because that was decades ago and we're still here. And so, anyway, that was the thing that kind of stood out to me.
In Jesus Revolution.
In Jesus Revolution, yeah.
I think there was lots that stood out for me because, we grew up right after that era and everything and what was going on. But a really good movie. We got to watch it before it came out with the producer and check it out, which always makes you a little bit nervous because I grew up being taught to be very honest. And so you're going, oh, I hope this doesn't suck. And how am I going to give any critical feedback and all that kind of stuff? And we walked out with our son and everything. And it was just like, that was so well done. They did so many things well.
And it's cool to be friends with the people that are behind the scenes, making the movies. And you hear the stories of what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. And there was some cool stuff. And it was interesting because you wonder what, when it comes to something like I Can Only Imagine or Jesus Revolution, where you're playing characters like, Kelsey Grammer playing Chuck Smith. And you wonder, does that impact
his life?
As an actor?
It's a nice movie.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Really
You're tearing up.
I see you getting emotional. What are you feeling? Can I play doctor? What
yes, of course. I love this movie. Yeah. I really love it. When we first saw the first cut, we sat down in our home and Kate saw it. She said, "Oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever done." She started crying. But he's a man looking for his own faith and finds it as well. A man whose church is empty and he can't get traction, and he's starting to think he's going to be fired from his job as a pastor. And this hippie comes into his life, and he finds new purpose, and started a movement that is still going.
So
it's extraordinary.
True story.
Yeah, it's a true story. Chuck Smith is the guy I played. He died in 2014, I think. But the number of people who came up and said, "Oh, you're playing Chuck Smith? Oh, I listen to him all the time." Or and they say, he married us. Or I was baptized by Chuck Smith. You can see this light in their eyes. And
actors are, I mean, they're trained to put on the persona of somebody else and to be able to take it back off. And that's one of the things that we've talked to Diane about is that, the actors have to learn how to put on different personas, like different sets of clothes, and be able to hang them up and walk away and, not carry, stuff with them, because you have to go to some dark places as an actor. And, but, in this case, playing somebody like a Chuck Smith
that has a positive.
And, we can't go into a lot of details, but we do know that it did actually have a really positive effect on Kelsey. And he did share that. He did share that publicly in an interview
with Kelly and Ryan. And so anyway, we're going to move on to, if you want to watch the full interview that we did with Brent McCorkle, you can check it out in the description below.
We also have one that we did with Daryl Lefevre.
We did.
Yeah, and that was fun too.
We'll
really fun.
Put both of those down there. But the second out of the 5 of our favorites was an interview we did with Carrie.
From
Nefarious.
Nefarious, yeah.
Which was interesting because Nefarious came out. There was a lot of controversy, around
about
Nefarious.
It was people were confused.
Yeah. Here it was, rated R, but there wasn't any real reason for it to be rated R. I've seen so many things that are PG-13 that you're like, I would not let my child watch this.
Right.
I would not let my teenager. I would not watch it. I'm going, oh my gosh, I should walk out right now. But with Nefarious, it was this really strange thing because I think it was for disturbing. Was it? I can't remember what he said. Something disturbing images or disturbing stuff. And it was
well, I mean, it's like you're watching demonic possession,
right? Which should be disturbing.
Yeah, Sean Patrick Flannery, playing a demonically possessed person, and so similar in because there's The Exorcist was rated R, and there wasn't really any violence in it. She was throwing up green stuff, and it was scary. And
it was scary though,
right? And so Nefarious doesn't really ever really verge on that, but it
definitely disturbing.
Yeah,
PG-13. I would say I would take somebody that's mature enough to watch it and go see it. But I think what was confusing is you have the Christian audience automatically, a lot of Christian audience automatically just dismissing it because of a rated R, and then you have a worldly audience that is confused by some of the messaging. And so really well done though. I think that for
the most part it was really well done. A friend of ours was also the director of photography on that. And one of our other friends also helped with some of the editing.
Jason Head was the cinematographer.
And did an amazing job.
We also did an interview with him.
And so you can see that in the link below as well. But really well done as far as, because it's amazing, honestly, and I said this in the interview with Carrie, but that for a movie about two guys having a conversation, the way that they filmed it, very very Fincher like, and Fincher is known for being able to take some of those kind of more mundane situations and turn them, into these very tense moments. Of course, Sean's performance
was awesome.
Was riveting. Was honestly riveting. Probably one of the better performances that I've seen in a while. And that's one of the things that's like stood out to me this year on a couple of other movies. Is like even acting for me has just fallen flat.
Again, we've had some really great conversations with Diane Venora this year about that kind of stuff of like why is acting falling flat?
And then Al comes in and it's this big fight. But I thought to myself, it doesn't work. It's kind of boring to me. So I went like this. I said, well, Michael Mann didn't like. I said, he said, we're going to do the scene with the lover. And I went, oh, okay. He goes, well, you don't like that scene? I go, no, it's just typical, typical Hollywood 101 triangle scene. He's mad at her. She's mad at him. Then he throws the TV out the window. Well, remember, I was much younger then. So he goes, well, do you have a better idea, Miss Venora? And I went, yeah, I think I do. And he goes, what is it? I said, why don't we play the entire scene like a Noel Coward comedy? And Al goes, I love Noel Coward. Because he's a theater man. So then Michael goes, what are you talking about? I go, like this. It's like Wimbledon. You have Love 15. So it's like this. Hello, husband. This is my lover. Lover. This is my husband. You want eggs? So now we have Love 15. Then he goes, okay, you can do this to my wife and that to my wife. You can't watch my blanking TV set, throws it out the window. I said, now we have 15 all. You know what I'm saying? I said this. Michael gets excited. And so does Al. They go to a far corner of this room and they're doing this. Chit, 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 chit. And I turned to the guy. I said, hi. I said, are you cold? Because he has no shirt. It's raining outside. He goes, yeah, I'm a bit. I said, you make a lot of money doing this? He goes, oh, yeah. Did you have a lot of, oh, yeah, I've been working all morning. But you got more out there. He goes, you look good payday. Then we went and put it on his feet. He goes, let's put it on his feet. And then Michael whispers to me, throw the lines away.
She was just saying part of it's the training, part of it's the grit, part of it's all this stuff. And she's just, I can't wait to interview
part of
her
it's
again.
kind of the cross-sectionality stuff that's been going on, where it's like, you know, before we look at like how talented you are as a director or whether or not you have the right vision for the project or anything like that, it's like, well, you have to tick, you know, some of these other boxes. It's like you've got to be, you know, in the case of what's going on at Disney, you got to be Pakistani and a lesbian and a female, apparent. You know, if you were going to be a lesbian, you had to be a female, I think. But anyway, so
not these days.
No, well, you never know. So you have to tick these boxes, and I think that to a certain degree, and then also I think though that some of these tentpole movies, and you hear also this way too, is that, you know, the directors are essentially handed a pre-visualized animatic of the film prior, and that's already been worked out, especially in something like, you know, like a Star Wars or a Marvel movie, where, you know, all of these different things are having to be taken into account because you've got 22 films prior that you have to be alluding to. And, you know, it is, to be fair, really hard for a director to keep track of all of that. And so there's a certain amount of that that's expected. But, you know, like Sofia Coppola, you know, she jumped off of Little Mermaid because she's like, you're not allowing me to actually direct it. And Edgar Wright famously jumped off of Ant-Man because of that. And I think that we're seeing more and more of that, is that, you know, these companies, these gigantic studios are more concerned about the bottom line and more concerned about their tentpole franchised products than they are about actually creating really great stories. And unfortunately, they're putting the directors, which are the chief storytellers, to the back of the line, you know, which is sad.
Sound of Freedom is smashing it at the box office and is being attacked continually by the mainstream. Is that because it's a box office success? Is it because of QAnon conspiracy theories? Is it because it's a new emergent business model? Or does the establishment have something more serious to hide?
Speaking of amazing actors, and a surprise film that did really well in the box office was Sound of Freedom.
Yep, did really well.
And so we got to do, I got to do an interview with Jim Caviezel and General Flynn. And General Flynn is just a phenomenal
and it went kind of viral.
human. And then there was a portion of it that went viral. So
it says his days are numbered, referencing me. They will make it look like an accident. He is likely correct. The CIA does this, and it is used for blackmailing their assets in high places to keep them in line. Hollywood actor Jim Caviezel says CIA operates world's biggest pedophile ring. Well, let me explain something to all of you in the world that think that I'm a little girl and I'm afraid of you. I'm not scared in the least bit. God brought me into Hollywood to become an actor. He asked me to do that. He was my intel officer, the greatest God, the only God. And he loved me enough to give me a purpose in my life, because I was the lowest of the low at that time. And I would gladly trade my life to save these little ones.
Yeah, we're not even on TikTok.
No.
We're not on several social media sites, and all of a sudden we're getting text messages from people.
Everybody, my phone is blowing up going, hey, there's hundreds of thousands of views over here and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
it went pretty crazy. But what's interesting with that is, that film was supposed to come out several years ago, speaking of Disney and all that kind of stuff. And then it got buried. And then it got picked up by Angel Studios this year. And they released it on the 4th of July. And it went gangbusters.
Yeah, it actually, if you could pull up the numbers, it actually made it to the top 10. The top 10 of movies in 2023. And that's just showing its domestic box office. I think total international, it was well over $240 million, which is pretty crazy. I mean, considering, the top 10, you've got Barbie, Super Mario Brothers, Spider-Man as the top 3, then Guardians of the Galaxy on number 4, Oppenheimer. I mean, these are big movies, and there you got Sound of Freedom over Taylor Swift, which I
know my
love
friend
that.
Michael Manhart texted me yesterday, and he was saying, "Look at Sound of Freedom beat out all the Swifties," and I think that is very impressive because if you look at those numbers, in the films that they're there. What Barbie and Super Mario Brothers and Spider-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of them, even Oppenheimer, what they have in common is they have years worth of history because Barbie's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
And so all the little girls that grew up with Mattel, that grew up with Barbie, all that kind of stuff, want to know how they're going to tell that story.
And Super Mario, Mario's been around forever.
Forever.
I mean, on Brent McCorkle's shirt, if you noticed,
I didn't.
He had Donkey Kong
on
his shirt. I mean, Mario's been around since Donkey Kong
I've got
came
a,
around.
but I think Donkey Kong's over there.
What, how long ago was that? Let's see. I'm 45, and so when I was knee high to a grasshopper, I remember playing Donkey Kong. And so, so early 80s, Mario's been around. So what you're saying is the history.
Well, the history, the nostalgia. They have a built-in audience that want to go see these things. Spider-Man, he's our grandson's favorite character. Guardians of the Galaxy, another one of those, comic book stories that has a large following. Oppenheimer, was a story that a lot of people have known historically as well. Besides, it had this okay director or something attached to it.
That guy.
And then Avatar, same thing. Little Mermaid, a lot of people were trying to figure out what their thoughts were going to be on that. And then John Wick is something that has gathered somewhat of a following on its own.
The other interesting thing is that almost every single other one of those movies is a franchise movie. So you have John Wick's franchise, Ant-Man's franchise, Avatar's franchise. Little Mermaid's not necessarily franchise but it's Disney, right? So Disney already kind of it's that live action franchise kind of thing that they're doing. Oppenheimer is not a franchise.
No.
Guardians is a franchise. Spider-Man's a franchise. Super Mario Brothers is the first of an obvious franchise, and Barbie is also a first of a obvious franchise as well, and not the first Barbie movie, but just the first of that particular ilk of Barbie movie. So
one of the things
the fact that Sound of Freedom punched in through all of that is pretty remarkable,
right? And one of the things that we were talking about with Sound of Freedom is that people are hungry for stories that matter.
Yep.
That they're going, how does this impact my life? How does this impact the world? We need some hope. We need to expose the truth. And it obviously, and it was well done. I have to say, that's the other thing, is just because there's a cause behind something and you don't do it well, it might not get views just because it wasn't good.
Yep. And it had a lot of stuff going for it. What's interesting, there's a couple things, points to make, I think, on that was that the movie had been kind of, like you said, buried, and
now it's coming this myth legend kind of thing,
right? To become like this urban legend. It's like, oh, if you're a Sound of Freedom, what's Sound of Freedom? Oh, Sound of Freedom's burnt. They buried that thing. They don't want that thing to come out because of the pedophilia rings,
right?
And you've got in the clip that went viral, with you and the General and Jim. He's talking about that. He was responding to something that he said, and that went viral, and this comment about Hollywood's pedophilia problem, and lo and behold, these last couple of days,
Jim's not crazy.
Yeah, Jim's not crazy. All of a sudden, court documents that that are pointing at stuff that Jim was alluding to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's people like Jim who know stuff. I mean, Mel Gibson has famously said some things. Even Keanu Reeves has referred to stuff. And I think that there's more and more of that is coming out. And so I think that part of, The Sound of Freedom's success is that, people watch stuff like that and they go, okay, this is based on a true story. And I understand that this has been dramatized, but I know that this stuff is going on. It's one of the reasons why I think House of Cards, the first season, was very popular and successful, is because there was like this twisted reality of DC that people were watching and going like, I know that kind of stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of thing is going to be much more popular in the coming years, because I think that as some of these Band-Aids get pulled off and people actually see some of the darkness that's been kept from us through, the commercialism and the glitz and the glamour and everything else, and we're going to have to sort out and decipher, what life looks like after that. How did that happen? Why did it happen? These kind of expose stories to a certain degree is going to be interesting to see.
Mike Adams did a really good job in Out of Shadows, because he worked in the industry for a very, very long time and is still working, using his skill sets for good. But he exposed a lot of that stuff in Out of Shadows. Unfortunately, it got dismissed by people as a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But what happens whenever the truth is the truth, it eventually comes out. And I think that people like him are going to be vindicated because what's being exposed right now.
Yeah.
But on switching gears on a lighter, happier note,
yes,
I also got to work on the marketing team for a Christmas film called Bringing Back Christmas.
Bringing Back Christmas.
We got to do an interview with a friend of ours, Ryan.
Let the audience know who you play in the film.
I play Mary's dad, which sounds ridiculous just to say that out loud. But as I mentioned, there's an interesting camaraderie between Mary's parents and Joseph's parents. So I play Mary's dad in the movie, and as referenced in the trailer, the premise is that they're obviously speaking in Hebrew, but in order for Daniel, who's watching all of this, to understand it, he's watching it as if he were watching a sitcom.
You can get there in half the time if you cut through Samaria. I'm just saying.
No respectable person will cut through Samaria. Everybody knows that.
Well, I tell you this, a smart person on a donkey with a pregnant wife who wants to get to Bethlehem and back in order to have our grandchild at home, they would.
He took on this, this very New York accent, and think Seinfeld's parents kind of thing was sort of the idea behind that character. So he's a doting father, and of course no one is good enough for his daughter, and he's going to stand up for his daughter in every way. And this ridiculous Joseph, is not deserving of my Princess Mary.
You said he was your favorite performance.
He was my favorite performance. He did this New York, New Jersey Jew kind of thing, playing Mary's dad. And that was one of the things that I appreciated about that movie, was the willingness to, kind of explore some of the comedic, elements, instead of taking, what they could have, which would have been a completely serious route. It's like, what would this look like if, we did this more like a sitcom, where, you see Mary and Joseph's mom and dad's, arguing about whether or not Jesus, the first child or the children of Mary and Joseph are going to be spending Rosh Hashanah or Passover with them. And, just kind of, and it's funny how comedy does that. It kind of makes you go, oh yeah, they probably would have had conversations like that,
Yeah.
Because, even 5 or 10 miles apart from each other,
was a
day's journey, so like, hey, how are we going to do this thing, and all of that. So it was a cute movie, and you got to actually work a lot on getting it out there.
Yeah. And I think that the interesting thing is the misunderstanding of the messages, because Mark Christopher Lawrence was a lead character in there, and our friend Lee Allen Baker was the lead character in there. And so Mark Christopher's got a Christmas hat on. So a lot of people mistook it for a...
we had a Santa hat on.
A Santa hat on. For a Santa film, when it was actually the story of Mary and Joseph and everything. And so that was an odd thing to navigate. And
you would post these things online.
Yeah.
And you would get these comments of Black Santa, no way, kind of a thing. And you're like, the movie doesn't mention Santa once. Like it's not even about Santa Claus. I don't even think that Mark Christopher Lawrence actually even wore a Santa hat in the film. I think that was just for the poster. Yeah. So,
But part of being on that film is that we were talking to Mel K and different things about what is the true meaning of Christmas, and how has society changed it and made it more about something that it's not, and commercialized everything. And it is called Bringing Back Christmas because it's bringing the story of Christ back to the center of Christmas. He is the reason for the season. And so it does exactly that. And I said, that's something I want to share with my children. That's something I want to put out there for the world to see, is why do we celebrate this holiday? It's not just something you do to put up a tree and have pretty decorations and overspend or all that kind of stuff. It's actually to honor that we had somebody come down to earth, be our savior,
Totally. And I think that this is probably a good enough time as any to make the point that I've been making this year, which is there are Christians, and I know that a lot of people that listen to us are Christians, that are questioning, and we went through this too when we were kids. Our parents questioning whether or not Christians should celebrate Christmas, because Christmas still has some pagan symbolism, and people would say like, well, it's actually... it's tied to pagan sun worship, and
it has its origins
and all of that sort of thing. And the thing is that we need to remember our history as Christians. And what happened back in the day was that these missionaries, like St. Patrick or St. Nicholas, would go out and go out and evangelize to a people group that had never heard anything about, not even Judaism, right? I mean, like they had never heard anything about the God of the Bible, and they would go out and they would look for ways to find that little glimmer of the gospel, right? And you hear about that even in modern in missionary work, and some of like the Indonesian cannibal tribes and things
Tolkien
like that.
and C.S. Lewis, used a lot of
that kind of thing.
Storytelling to share the Gospels.
Right. And exactly. But the point is that you have, so when you have a missionary that goes into the deepest, darkest jungles of Druidic Ireland, okay, and finds a people group that is worshiping the sun. And the sun is every single year getting darker and darker and darker and darker until December. And then all of a sudden it's like they freak out and they do their thing. And then all of a sudden it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. They think that there's this cause and effect to their worship and their worship of this God and to this festival and whatever it is that they're doing. And the missionaries looked at that kind of stuff and said, no. This is the God of the Bible. This is, and yes, the world was getting darker and darker and darker, but here is Christ, and he is the incarnate God, Yahweh, the Almighty God, and what you've been worshiping is a false God or a lesser God, and he is the chief God, and he came down, and he not only did he do that, but he came down because of his love, because of he's saving us.
Yeah.
And so they turned this whole thing around to become Christ Mass. That's pretty freaking awesome. And what I don't understand is that when the because Christians looked at it from the standpoint of being on the offensive, we were coming at it from the standpoint of the Lord has regained all of the nations unto himself. Christ is now King of the nations, and we are out to go and share his light.
Yeah.
And we take that stuff away from the devil. Now, all of a sudden, it's like people want to give it back. And I'm like, why?
But
why can't we just celebrate Christmas and celebrate Jesus?
I think growing up, like you said, I think both of our parents had different reasons for not celebrating it. And, you know, for years we didn't have a Christmas tree. We didn't do any holidays for a very long time besides our birthday. But my parents, I felt, were at least valuing their convictions. They were at least saying, I don't feel like this is appropriate because of its roots. Later on, my mom and dad both said, you know, I do see that the Christian symbolism, I do see that it brings families together. I do see that it brings generosity. I do, even though Jesus's birth looks like it was more at Rosh Hashanah and everything, that we're celebrating his life and we're honoring that.
Right.
And so I understand that they changed their conviction. So I always tell everybody, you know, celebrate and honor your convictions first. And,
you got to honor your convictions,
and
for
then,
sure.
But then also have those conversations. Be willing to talk it out. Be willing to have a conversation even with the Lord and say, am I doing something that's best for my family?
Right.
Because there are things, you know, where Halloween is one of those ones that is, you know, for many years we were celebrating Halloween and we're like, nah, I don't know about this anymore. And so I think that that's something that's really important, is always pray about what.
Yeah, you got to have, but have the conversations.
But have the conversations,
I think that's the
for sure.
thing, is that, you know, and I think that's one of the things that we all need to learn to do, is to have those kinds of conversations.
Voters are already lining up at the polls in what looks like a record-breaking turnout for Arizona.
The polls were close in 2020 and yet again here in 2022.
Things started off pretty well.
Right now, votes that are coming in are going our way.
And then went downhill from there.
Maricopa County seems to be having trouble.
The lines were outside the building.
One of the tabulators is not working.
Well, nothing's working.
She tried to vote and her ballot was rejected 20 times.
7,000 rejections every 30 minutes.
There are still hundreds of thousands of ballots left to be counted.
Still being counted.
For it to happen now is kind of strange.
Can people be confident their vote will count?
There is a feeling that something's not right.
And we looked at the video footage. The math doesn't add up.
Why did they scan in more ballots than they have record of receiving?
Such egregious mismatches.
We found voter registrations that had no signature.
They remove the seals.
Remove the memory cards, which is breaking the law.
Day one of the two-day trial.
Clay, what did you find out? I saw it in the war room.
It's a different process for election day. There's no other process for election day spelled out in the law.
4 times he denied that never could occur.
So are you changing your testimony?
Scott, why are you running from us?
Were you coached by legal counsel?
Constant messaging of deny, deny, deny.
Scott, how do you boldly lie like that?
Documentary that we just released.
It is an argument.
It is.
It's a court case.
It's a court case. Yeah.
And we released it on December 20th, and it follows Carrie Lake's legal team about the elections in 2022. And
it's called State of Denial.
State of Denial. And it had over 1 million views within 9 days.
Yeah.
I think that was
pretty
that
cool.
was pretty awesome.
Robert Kiyosaki shared it.
On his X account. Very humbling.
Very humbling. And it's hard sometimes when you put something out like that where it's just for free and people can share it. So, you know, if you want to see it, there's the link below. Please watch it, share it. Getting a lot of really good responses from it, but it's also interesting because you don't know who's sharing it, right? It's like, you know, you might see that count on Rumble or on X or whatever, where it's like, well, this particular file has been seen so many times.
Yeah, 544,000.
Right, but then, you know,
this one's 156,000.
Right, somebody shares it.
This one's 100 and some thousand.
I don't know how many people have seen that, or, you know, and then because the film, we're it's not being sold or anything like that. People have ripped it and uploaded it to their accounts, and really that's what it's for. It's really to get the information,
not
out
to rip
there.
it to use for your own.
Yeah, not to rip it and use it for your own commercial gain.
Yeah,
like if you stick ads on it and stuff like that, that's no go.
No,
like,
no
don't,
go.
Don't do that. But please share it and get it out there, because a lot of people, there's been actually quite a few people that have reached out and said, you know what, this was really well done. You laid it out, and it really kind of opened my eyes to some stuff that was going on. And I don't know how anybody can look at what you guys shared and showed and not think, something's going on. Something's going on.
We got to do an interview for Coming Attractions with Shelby Bush.
You want to know who the bad guy is and who the good guy is? Just look at each person and say, are they protecting the institution or the Constitution? Because that's the difference. These people are hell-bent on protecting an institution that has failed we the people. And so when they put the institution above the Constitution, they're a bad guy. I mean, it should be really pretty simple.
I think that goes back also to the education system. And what you're talking about there is we've been taught that, well, just let the government do everything and let the government handle everything and all that. But as you're even saying, our government isn't even doing it. We've hired other companies to do it. We're not empowered on any level, and that should be concerning. And it's the whole, we have to trust, but verify. We're not trying to disenfranchise voters. We actually want people to vote their convictions and get out there.
And just count it properly.
And count it properly. She was in the film. And she shared some really great stuff during the interview.
She did.
And I think that her point about who's the good guys, who's the bad guys was awesome.
Yep.
And
she made I'm going to use that line.
Yeah. And so I think that the thing is people will ask us, like, why do you make those kinds of films? Why are you doing that kind of stuff? And, what's one of our goals this year?
Goal for 2024 is actually direct a scripted project, because we've done 4 feature-length documentaries now.
Yeah, in the last 4 years.
And a bunch of short films. And and people kind of know us as the documentary people now.
I know. We used to be known as the commercial people. And then we won the Catalina Film Festival for a documentary.
Yep.
And then we've done several documentaries since then. But you're a very talented writer. And we've been working on a project that is called Homeschooled. Been writing that with David Van der Zanden. And we've been working on some other stuff. And so that's something that we are being intentional about, is to not have to do a bunch of expose documentaries.
But at the same time, it's like, it's something that I feel like I always say, it's like there's things that everybody can do to be a part of what's going on right now. Because like we said at the beginning, 2023 was the weirdest year on record, and we've had some weird years. I mean, like the last 4 years, it just keeps getting kind of progressively odder and odder as we move along. So stuff is going on, and these kind of conversations need to be had. And everybody can do something to be a part of, making the world right again, and part of our talents and skill sets is to tell stories. And, when it comes to documentaries, we've both watched documentaries where we're like, you click it off and you're like, okay, well, the information was good, but man, oh my gosh, like I was kind of bored halfway through, or that could have been 20 minutes shorter, or, whatever. And our goal with anything that we create is that, people would want to watch it all the way to the end.
That they would enjoy the process of watching it. It wouldn't be a painful thing.
Right. So, and not only that the information would be solid and clear, but that, there would be the rise and the fall of action, and, you would feel like, it's entertaining to watch.
So we do plan on doing some more State of Denial.
We do.
Because we did State of Denial Arizona. We hope to be doing Georgia, Michigan, maybe Wisconsin, maybe a couple others. And so if people want to help be a part of that, you can donate at stateofdenial.com.
Yeah, so it's state-of-denial.com. The link is going to be in the description below. And there is a donate page, and you can be a part of the next project and keeping it free, because that's one of the goals, is to put this into place where anybody on X could share it, anybody on Rumble can share it. It's just very easy for people to find and watch, because they can just scroll through social media and then put it up on their TV and watch it.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of really great guests lined up for 2024. There's a lot of great movies that are going to be coming out. We're going to be a part of a few of those. One of the ones that we are going to be interviewing pretty soon is a gentleman that you met recently.
Yep. We'll be interviewing, it's coming up soon, Richard Ramsey, who's a co-director of Unsung Hero, which is going to be coming out in April. And it tells the story of For King and Country and Rebecca St. James. And so it's another one of those biopic films that are centered around, a musical family. And so Richard, got to meet him. Brent McCorkle actually introduced me to Richard. And so Richard's a really great guy. Getting to know him, and so we're going to have him on, and so stay tuned to this channel. If you haven't liked this video and you're watching this video, you should totally like this video, because if you've gotten this far all the way to the end, you obviously liked it, so you may as well share that with the world by pushing the thumbs up button. And then also, if you're not subscribed to our Rumble channel, please subscribe. We post pretty much, once a week, 3 times a month, kind of a thing. We share little clips and different things like that. Some of the trailers that we're working on.
Right.
So stay tuned with what we're doing, because there it is right there, SparrowRumble.com.
One of the reasons why we're doing this channel is we really want to be sharing with you guys some quality films that are coming out, things that are going to impact your life, your family, stuff that you can watch and that you're going to enjoy. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what kind of films you guys like watching as a family. What would you go to the theater for? What do you watch at home? What kind of documentaries are your favorite? Let us know what you guys are looking for, because that's what we want to do. We want to serve you guys with meaningful content and content that glorifies God.
And we're going to start doing some more reviews of films and things like that we're watching. We've watched a few series recently that we've really enjoyed, and the things that we liked, the things that we didn't like, things that you can look out for. We're pretty selective about what we watch.
I'm different selective than Matt.
And how so?
Because just some of we have a good crossover, just like music. Like there's some music that we both like. True. And then there's some music that I like that you're like, nah. And then there's some music that you like that I'm like, nah.
Yeah, she's definitely much more of Metallica. Yeah, Def Leppard. And I was much more of like a Phil Collins and U2. So there you go.
Anyway, we thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we hope to see you next week. God bless.
Talk to you later.